A very good evening, everyone. Respected Director Professor R.T. Krishnan, Dean of Programs Professor Rahul Dé, PGP Chair R. Srinivasan, esteemed faculty, and a roaring welcome to the incredible PGP and PGP-BA batch of 2024. On behalf of Students Academic Committee, I, Niharika Shukla, and my team member Yogesh Mahajan welcome you to Pragya 2024. We have gathered today for an event steeped in tradition and profound purpose, Pragya. Pragya, a Sanskrit word signifying the purest form of wisdom and understanding, transcends mere knowledge acquired through conventional means. It delves into the essence of being a human. Tonight is a moment to internalize your learnings, recalibrate your aspirations, and equip yourselves with the wisdom to navigate the vast and ever-changing landscape of upcoming life. Think of yourselves as experienced sailors, docking their vessels not for rest, but for strategic recalibration. Sharpen your tools, fortify your resolve, and prepare to chart your course with the guidance of seasoned mentors, our esteemed faculty, who possess years of invaluable experience. Pragya is more than just a ceremony. It's a transformation. May this evening ignite a lifelong pursuit of Pragya, guiding you towards success and fulfillment in all your endeavors.
The IIMB batch of 2024, you have conquered all the steps in the rigorous exercise of transforming yourself from employees and students of yesterdays to the managers of tomorrow. You have persevered and you have excelled through your sheer determination. We are here on this day celebrating your journey. Before we proceed with the event, we would like to invite dignitaries on the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let us begin this celestial experience. I would now take this opportunity and request the Director of the Institute, Professor R.T. Krishnan, to address the outgoing batch.
Yeah, so this is, I think, a nice day, and it looks a bit different from the last few days. We're seeing some clouds. I hope we also see some rain soon in a few days. It's getting terribly hot, and I think we need to cool down as you reach the end of your program. So good evening and welcome to this important event. First, I'd like to congratulate and compliment all of you on continuing the tradition of holding this event every year. It's important for all of you to listen to some of the professors who have really influenced you during your stay here. And I'm sure this will be a good opportunity for all of you to reflect on your stay at the Institute. In general, I refrain from giving people advice. So I will say very little, and I will leave it to our three colleagues here who are on the stage to share their words of wisdom with you. So I'm just going to restrict myself to one point. And that one point is about understanding people. So this actually goes back to a discussion that I had with Vansh a few days ago. And we had some further exchange on that in the class this morning. And essentially, it's focused on your ability to read people, understand what makes them tick, and also thereby to have more influence in pursuing any particular aim or objective that you have. One area in which I've generally found many of our young MBA friends here like you are not very good is actually at doing or undertaking this particular process. In general, I know that many of you think that OB courses are maybe not the most exciting in town, or that's the kind of feedback I've heard in the past. But I think you missed, if you didn't take them seriously, you probably missed an important opportunity to understand what motivates and drives people. I also believe that some of the most successful entrepreneurs and managers are those who are able to influence people. You might have heard of this very famous book by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Even today, it remains a Bible as far as sales is concerned. And though many of you might not choose to pursue a sales career, let me assure you that the process that you follow in sales is something you will have to do wherever you are. If you're a consultant, you will have to try and persuade the company to accept your recommendations. If you're a banker, you will similarly have to impress upon your clients. If you are trying to orchestrate a merger or acquisition, you will again need certain amount of interpersonal skills. So whatever course of action you're following, your ability to understand people and what makes them tick is going to be extremely important. To do this, I think the starting point is to understand yourself well and to make sure that your assessment of yourself is reasonably honest and true. And the better you understand yourself, the less threatened you will feel when other people make comments. Because whatever comment they make, if you know what you are and what you stand for, you will certainly be able to put up with that more easily. And I'm sure in the early part of your career, you will get pushed around by many people, and that's part of the entire process of growing up in corporate life. So just to close that argument, I'm saying the first thing is you need to understand yourself well, what you're really good at, what you're not good at, where you need to improve, and where you perhaps need to maybe smoothen out some rough edges that you have. Extending this logic, I think it really helps if you can understand other people as well. Many of you have, or sometimes have, a phobia against what you call networking. Networking somehow has a negative connotation attached to it. I would urge you to drop that negative connotation. The more people you get to know, the better. The more you can network with people, actually, the better. And I don't mean it in a negative sense, because I mean it again in the sense of what I just told you, that if you want to win friends and influence people, the more people you know, the more you're able to make them understand your point of view, the more you're able to understand what is important to them, that's going to be important for you to pursue anything that you want to do. Just to close, I did the FPM program in IIM Ahmedabad, and we did a lot of courses with our PGP batchmates. And the most, I don't know if it's the most loved person, but certainly the most valued person today, or one of the most cherished people in our batch, is a guy who has the strongest network. Whenever we want some information about reaching out to somebody, we all reach out to the same guy, because he is so well networked with everybody, not only among the IMA alumni group, but across industries. In fact, what's amazing is that he's networked across so many groups. He's a runner, so he's in the runners group. He is a data analyst, so he is in the data analytics group. He worked once upon a time in the finance industry. He has a huge finance group. So almost any domain you can imagine, he is the go-to guy. And I just feel that today, after so many years, now it's more than 30 years since we all got out of that program, you can just see the value networking brings. And so again, just to sum up, understand yourself well, try to understand other people well and what makes them tick, and don't look at networking as a bad word, because it isn't. I think in today's world, the more people you know, and here I'm not talking about people on Instagram or whatever other is the standard platform these days, but people you actually genuinely know and can reach out to. So I'll leave it at that, but otherwise, all the best to all of you. Anyway, I'll have a chance to give you a longer talk in the convocation, so I'll stop right here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor R.T. Krishnan, for emphasizing the paramount importance of understanding the people and the value of network. Now, we would like to invite Dean Programs, Rahul Dé, to come and share his valuable words with the batch 2020.
Thank you for inviting me. I've had the pleasure of welcoming you guys here on campus 2 years ago, and thanks for inviting me to give you some farewell words. You are a very resilient batch. I'm very impressed by you guys. You've had a very tough, let's say, journey through IIMB. And I'm not referring to all your coursework and grades and all that. That, of course, remains tough. But you've had some tragic incidents that you faced. You are one of the batches that has had to face a very tough market this year. But hey, look at the positive side. Mostly all of you, 99%, you're through. So you're doing very well. I'm very happy with that. You did face a tragic incident maybe less than a year ago, but again, I saw your resilience and how you guys fought back and did very well. So I have only 3 things to say to you. I'm also not much into imparting wisdom, but I will say 3 things which I think are important. The first one is you must stay informed. I'm ancient now by your standards. I'm actually looking at retirement. But you know what? I don't give up on following the field. You have to follow the field. You have to follow whatever is happening around you. So you have to be reading. And by reading, I don't mean social media or Chetan Bhagat. You've got to be reading substantively in the field. Things are changing very rapidly. You guys know it. And you have to be informed about it. The second point is actually related. You have to be informed because where you are going to work, wherever you are, you will be facing a lot about technology, and particularly information technology, something I've been professing to you. Many of you have been in my classes. This is a very big gorilla sitting there. And you will be affected. You have to know how to adapt to it. And in general, I will argue against many of the things I've been saying in class. Of all the great things it does, eventually you have to choose life over technology, over materiality. You have to choose sentience over the mechanical aspects of technology. That is very, very important. And again, my last point is also connected to this earlier point. Although there will be massive, massive changes being brought in your lifetimes with technology, eventually what will matter are your family, your friends. And Rishi is absolutely right about that. You have to stay connected with all the people you know through ways that people connect, not through this social media and the technology aspects. Let me close by one thing I've been saying to several batches over the years. It is the parable of the pigeons and the kites. The pigeons, as I see them, and I don't see many today, the pigeons are very hardworking creatures. They work very hard to build their nests, have their families, they collect food, and they come back and at the end of whatever their cycle is, they sit down, they do this gutur gum gum, gutur gum gum, gutur gum gum. They turn around a couple of times, go to sleep. The kites also do the same thing. They also build their nests. They feed the kids and take care of the family. And at the end of it all, the kites take flight. They catch the drifts, the air drafts. They fly up into the sky, and they just hover way above. And I don't know what they do out there. There is no evolutionary reason for them to do that. There's no food up there. There are no mates up there. There are no predators up there. They're not running away from anything. They're just seeing the world a little differently. And I strongly advocate the kite's perspective over the pigeons. Thank you very much, and good luck with everything.
Thank you, Professor. Indeed, our generation needs to read more and form real connections in the time of and beyond social media. Next, we have none other than our PGP PGP-BA Chairperson, Professor R. Srinivasan, who shall impart his words of wisdom.
Good evening. Welcome to this Pragya. I've been fortunate enough to be part of 3 events, and I've been fortunate enough to have listened to at least 6 of my colleagues and 3 more today. And each of these conversations have been meaningful, impactful, very, very deep. Some of these conversations have been very deep. We as a PGP system are not known to have very deep conversations, but each of these conversations have been deep. Very similar to what your seniors have done. This year also you have identified 3 distinguished colleagues, and we have gathered here to listen to advice from the three of them. But given that I have the microphone and I've been asked to give advice, let me do something else also. One of the things that we don't do, which we should do more, is to celebrate. We don't celebrate our accomplishments much. We don't celebrate a lot of our small accomplishments. I'm not talking about the mids. We wait for larger things to happen. At a larger level, big things matter to us. We don't see to celebrate small. Each of our grades, each of our midterm exams, each of our quiz grades, I've done well, I should feel happy about it. And we need as a community to have a lot of this throughout your academic journey. You've had so many things. I want you to reflect, spend a minute reflecting on your journey that you have gone through. How many small wins that you've had throughout. The sense of pride when you got your admission offer. The sense of pride when you were sitting here 2 years ago, 1 year, 9 months ago, entering into this campus. The sense of pride when you got little things, when you got your first grade, when you got your whatever, you got elected, you got selected, you got doing something, you got appreciated by your teammate. Reflect on this journey, how many things that you've had, how many successes you've had throughout this journey. And I don't think we celebrate enough. I would also look at a very cliched thing, start looking at lifelong learning. Graduation is not the end, right? Most of you are not likely to come back to a classroom anytime soon. Please attend next 3 days class. Don't bunk those 3 classes, but very unlikely that after you graduate, very few of you will get back into a formal classroom forever. But that doesn't stop you from learning. Please learn, and I keep saying this, repeating this again and again. Learn from whatever, wherever, whoever you can lay your hands on. Read, not just the books that Professor Rahul Dé tells you, but also read Chetan Bhagat. Please also read blogs. Please also read everything. There is some learning that's somewhere, hidden somewhere. When you buy a piece of Bel Puri, maybe that the newspaper that the Bel Puri came in has some interesting news, right? Please learn from wherever you want to. The world is continuously evolving. You should learn about artificial intelligence, plus please also learn about natural stupidity. I also want you to do priorities. I also want you to prioritize. Quite a lot of times, as a cohort, as a group, reflect on your values, reflect on your purpose, reflect on your why you're doing what you're doing. Quite a lot of times, we don't look for fulfillment, meaning in what we do. We're looking at careers as sheep. Everybody is doing this, let's also do this. Remember that we are all, people who are sitting here, is top 1% of this country. In terms of whatever parameters you think of, we will be in the top 1% of the country. Look at that privilege, and if you guys can't put up your hand to take on purposeful careers, who in this country can do? Repurpose yourself. Ask yourself this purpose. Go back and ask, am I doing something meaningful? Is it something that I will do? If not today, sometime tomorrow. Keep your purpose in mind when you're doing all of these. If you can't take the purpose, you can't do this, nobody else can do. Look for how much you can make an impact, right? A significant part of all these celebrations, all these successes, is also about failures. This is again a very cliche thing. Every failure is a stepping stone for success, right? No, not every failure is a stepping stone for success unless you are able to make sense of the failure. Did the failure happen because of my stupidity, because of something that I can change? I did not secure a great job. Is it because of me? Is it in spite of me? Unless we are able to discriminate the reason for a failure, no failure will become a stepping stone for success. Please, I want you to go back to discriminate why a failure happened and therefore be able to learn from failure. Another thing, like Rishi is talking about the OB courses, is something that is very underrated and very, this one you will laugh it off, I know for sure, is work-life balance. At this point in time, at this age and the beginning of your careers, sleeping for 4 hours is a matter of pride. 2 years ago, remember Rishi commented on a LinkedIn post that somebody wrote that I haven't slept for 3 days and I've been super productive enough, right? And Rishi's commented on that saying that I don't wish you do this again. It could be a matter of pride to say that I haven't slept for days, right? It is extremely important that you make sure that you prioritize your physical health, your mental health, your careers, and your everything else. You can't be postponing maintenance because I can't stop running the machine. It is extremely important that you need to prioritize. It is important that you need to practice work life. Find a hobby, find a passion, find something. It need not be running, it need not be something. Find something that makes meaning to you. Maybe pick up some art, maybe pick up something that you want to do. Do something. Do something that interests you, do something that keeps you meaningful, keeps you awake, keeps you alert, keeps you engaged for 15, 20, 30 minutes, 1 hour a day. Not sufficient. Sufficiently enough. You don't have to do something which is like 5 hours a day. You don't need to do second careers or moonlighting. Do something which is meaningful for 15 minutes. Build balance. Give back. You are privileged. We are privileged. We should be able to use our skills, use our knowledge, use our exposure. The country has given us, the society has given us, the friends, family, everybody has given us. Use those skills to do something meaningful, do something to give back to a more just, equitable, sustainable society. And lastly, with all of this success, with all of this congratulations, in the next month from now, in one exact month, you will hear a lot of congratulations from society, family, friends, colleagues, everybody else, from your peers. In all of these congratulations, stay humble. Practice humility, remain humble, be grateful for all the opportunities that you've got. Express gratitude. Express gratitude to the community. Express gratitude. Not just, I'm very thankful to this thing, but please find ways to express themselves. An expression of gratitude can take you a long, long way, right? Whoever it is the people around you, the people who have served you through the 2 years here, people who have helped you where you are, your project group mates, and I can't understate the value of connections, value of relationships, right? Nobody will remember what grades you got in your EMA or NEF courses. What they will remember at the end of 15 years, 20 years, what Rishi is talking about, the kind of people they will remember, are those people, those conversations that you have had before your celebrations in the midst, the conversations that you have had with Ginger Tea and Maggie, the conversations that you have had walking around on campus just before you hit the bed at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., those conversations, those are the ones you will remember. You will not remember your grades. Nobody will know you. It's a larger and larger batch, right? As the batches grow larger, people will remember what you did, what you spoke, rather than how you performed or what you did academically or formally. So please express gratitude, please build relationships, and celebrate every small thing that you have. At this note, thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you, Professor, for your inspiring word. The batch of 22-24 will cherish this day in their heart for a long time. The life advice they receive today is bound to help them to navigate various roadblocks in their life. Before we proceed with the event, let's rejoice in a wonderful, fluid performance by our Dhwani members.
It's my pleasure to perform for the best seniors, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
That was such a melodious performance.
Thank you. So now I would request dignitaries to take the seats in the front row.
Let's start with the first professor of the session, who has graciously offered to spare his time from his extremely packed schedule to interact with the batch. Before that, let me take this opportunity to introduce the professor. He is an extraordinary individual who wears many hats in India's startup world. As the chairperson of NSRSL, he played a crucial role in guiding budding entrepreneurs. He pondered over a thought-provoking question about who truly holds the key to a company's success, hinting at a bright future in venture capital in India. He was also a visionary who pioneered tech financing in India long before it was even conceived by others. However, a person who could have been possibly the Warren Buffett of PEVC with the wealth of his VC knowledge, instead of chasing fortune, chose the path of academia, where he shares his wealth of knowledge with eager minds. But there's more to him than meets the eye. Despite his impressive achievements, he's just too humble, often downplaying his achievements. Yet, his LinkedIn page is a treasure trove of insights. Known for his uncanny humor and a knack for writing long emails, he's filled with wisdom that instantly connects with others. In addition to his professional pursuits, he is an avid lover of history and a staunch advocate for free thinking, a testament to his multifaceted interest and intellectual curiosity. In a sense, the professor is known for his humility despite his remarkable achievements, who leaves a lasting impression on everyone he encounters. With this, I would like to invite Professor G. Shabrinathan to share his thoughts with us today. Big round of applause for Professor G. Shabrinathan.
Professor Krishnan, Director IIM Bangalore, Professor Rahul Dé, Dean Programs, Professor Srinivasan, Chairperson PGP, faculty colleagues who are here, people from the administrative team, and last but not the least, my dearest students. What would my life be if it wasn't for my family and all of you students? So I can't actually believe I'm here this evening. Pragya has been a star-studded event every year. And when the list gets announced, I used to look at the list longingly. And then I would look at the names, and they were all, rock star teachers. Professor J. Ramchandran, Anand Krishnamurthy, the late Anshuman Tripathi, Professor Chetan Subramaniam, and Professor Varun Jindal, my very young colleague. All brands in their own right. And this year we have Professor Shastri, who needs no introduction, and Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan. The trouble with being her colleague is whenever you step out of the campus, people ask you, do you know Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan? I've many times felt tempted to say there are 119 of others in the campus. So these are the kind of people that have gone before me or will be on the stage. And when I look at that, it's a little intimidating. So I'm reminded of a dialogue in the movie Notting Hill. I must have watched it some 20 times because of Julia Roberts. So I watched every single movie that she's acted in, trust me. Some of them multiple times. So this guy William, the hero in that movie, says, the whole world knows you, and my mother has trouble remembering my name. So that's the kind of differential in the brand value, the brand status that I'm talking about. So when Niharika and Yogesh approached me, two very lovely young people, they approached me. I was kind of very surprised. And the first thought that came to my mind is something that was beautifully captured by Kapil Dev in an interview with Simi Gariwal soon after he won the World Cup. So Simi Gariwal asks him, how do you find yourself in the new team? And he, with his thick accent, he says, exactly, I don't think so, I fit in here. So that's exactly my sentiment. I don't fit in here. But the desire to be here overpowered me, and I accepted the invitation. But then it's one of those post-acceptance angst that kicked in. I said, what do I say there? So normally you would say something profound or something new if you've read a lot, if you've read deeply, if you read widely. I have done neither of these, right? So given all of that, it was a bit of a challenge. And then I said, so I chewed a lot of my nails, tore through my hair, the little bit that's there left. And I finally came to the conclusion that the best way to tell you something that none of you knows already is to talk about my life's lessons. Because I'm a limited edition, like all of you are. Each one of us is actually limited edition. Come to think of it. Limited edition of one number, right? There's no one else like any of us in this world, right? So given that, I said, I will share with you my life's lessons. It's not remarkable, I must say, before you start imagining things. My personal life has been very boring, as I say at the start of my class. Got married at the age of 29, tame arranged marriage, nothing before marriage, nothing after marriage beyond my wife. Very boring. And I have now 2 sons who are irreverent, like all children of their age. Right. So I'm going to confine myself to my professional life and take you through some of the takeaways from that professional life. So a large part of my working life was spent in ICICI starting 1982. It was my campus job. I worked in project financing and strategic planning until I was moved out as part of the founding team that set up India's first venture capital institution called TDICI. God was kind to me, and I did a few interesting things in ICICI. I wrote the policy document that became the basis for TDICI. It became the policy document that became the basis for CRISIL, the first credit rating institution. I was part of the team that wrote ICICI's vision document. Each of those instances was an unlikely event to have happened. I was not one of those young, ambitious, and far-sighted souls who had a sense of where the world was headed, who positioned himself to be part of that evolution. The other interesting thing I recall from that life is that I had the Midas touch, it seems. Everyone I worked with became a corporate superstar except me. Be it Ms. Shikha Sharma, who was CEO of Axis Bank, Dr. Nachiket Moore, Ms. Renuka Ramnath, the founder and CEO of Multiples Private Equity, and last but not the least, Ms. Chanda Kochar. I have shared an office with every one of them. On a lighter note, my Midas touch seems to have benefited even my former boss, KV Kamath. He was the head of our group, the strategic planning group. After being my boss, he moved to the Asian Development Bank on a journey that he never looked back from. I was also fortunate to have had an early association with many people who went on to become business icons like Mrs. Narayan Murthy, who not only refused to accept any money from my employer, TDICI, but would send me back with a nice cup of tea and lessons on how to do VC. Right. Mr. Nandan Nilekani. I sold the first 5 lakh rupee equity funding deal to Ms. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw. I did business with late Mr. V.G. Siddhartha in TDICI. And then perhaps the most unlikely of all of those accidents, and possibly the result of the not so happy collective karma of a lot of young men and women, I landed up here as a teacher. I've remained at IIMB most of these 24 years, except for less than 2 years, when I fled from IIMB to work as advisor to the government of Kuwait at the Kuwait Investment Authority, their sovereign wealth fund. So I reminisce about this professional past mainly to set the stage for the takeaways I wish to share. So now let me get to the takeaways. So my takeaway number 1 relates to my work in ICICI and as an investment professional. I joined ICICI on a May Monday at 9 a.m. The Thursday of that week, I was sent off to evaluate a project of a company called OEN Electronics in Cochin with a group of senior colleagues. That was baptism by fire the ICICI way. No training, no orientation, no kind or gentle initiation. Just throw the individual into the water and the survival instinct will make sure he stays afloat. Starting with that experience, I struggled to come up with my own way of understanding and evaluating businesses from a financing angle, given tonloads of information. I desperately tried to recollect everything I had been taught at IIMB, but there wasn't an awful lot to recollect. Because when I was a student here, attendance wasn't mandatory. Okay. Fortunately, I carried with me to Mumbai my textbooks and notes that helped me in recollecting some of those lessons. But from whatever I can recall, from what I learned in the classroom, the 4 P's of marketing, product life cycle, how to draw up a cash flow statement, the idea of value chain, right? One thing became evident to me, and that is the first takeaway which I wish to share this evening. What they teach you in a business school provides you an efficient way to unpack the complexity in the world of business, no matter what your functional area be. The classroom may not provide all the use cases for what is taught, but that's where one's ability to apply, adapt one's learning becomes important. I choose to highlight this takeaway right in the beginning because there's often this question, if all these fancy frameworks that are taught inside the classroom have any real-world application, and you would be very well justified in having that doubt in your mind. But what's more worrying to me than that is what I hear sometimes, this line that one learns more outside the classroom than inside. Having been someone who spent a lot of time outside the classroom, trust me, what you learn in the classroom is actually very, very helpful. I submit to you that this is a line that you learn outside the classroom more than inside the classroom is actually a line worth revisiting. I'll move on to my second takeaway now. During my working life, I've met a range of people from many different walks of life. I've met some extraordinarily decent and generous souls. I've met a few strange characters too. 2 of them are exceptionally worth remembering. One is a gentleman, a business promoter, who declared his father dead when he was even alive in order to claim his insurance money. The other is a promoter whose factory mysteriously went up in smoke a few months before his offspring's wedding. So I've sort of interacted with some very, very strange individuals of this kind. Now, and the irony is that when his factory went up in smoke, my portfolio had a blowback, but that wasn't the end of it. My colleagues thought I had a role in the fire in the factory. So that's another story. Okay. So with the range of experience I had over time, I started developing heuristics for forming opinions about people from their appearance, their initial behavior, and so on. Quite quickly, though, I realized that it's a fraught process. My hypotheses about the intelligence of people, their goodness of heart, and various other attributes were often wrong. I was often reminded of this line that my father taught me from Gray's elegy written in a country churchyard. It says, "Full many a gem of purest ray serene, the dark unfathomed caves of ocean bear. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen, and wastes its sweetness on desert air." So around us, we see a lot of talent. We see a lot of good qualities. It's just that we often fail to notice. So very often we make this remark, he's after all doing a low-paid job. How can you expect him to be so committed? And I beg to disagree with that. So the person who's taught me most work ethics is the maid who's worked in my house for the past 19 years. At 6:15 a.m. every morning, come rain, come shine, that lady rings the doorbell. I can actually set my clock, my watch, by the time she rings the doorbell. So I think all these nice qualities that we talk about, work ethics, commitment, sincerity, it's around all of us. It's not limited to certain strata of society. It's not limited to certain types of people. That is the takeaway for me. So I got my pages mixed up here. Yeah, here it is. So that brings me to my third takeaway. There's an interesting saying that's attributed to George Bernard Shaw. If at age 20 you're not a communist, you have no heart. if at the age of 30 you are not a capitalist, then you have no brains. Right? It's a very oft-repeated quote. There's nothing new about it. Right? So I was left-leaning well before 20. I was a raging commie. Right? But soon after I graduated from IIMB, I read 2 books that left me with a conviction that has stayed with me. And these 2 books are Darkness at Noon by Arthur Koestler and One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. Both are set in Soviet Russia, communist Russia. I swore to myself that all my life, in whatever small measure possible, I would oppose totalitarianism in every possible way. Human society built the idea of rule of law 8 centuries ago with the Magna Carta. We developed the idea of individual liberty over 4 centuries later, starting with Oliver Cromwell, in some sense, followed by the French Revolution and the American War of Independence. The Industrial Revolution led to technology and commerce that helped break down social hierarchies. But the same forces of technology and commerce seem to weaken the liberal values that civilization has developed over these long centuries. In his deeply disturbing book, The End of Reality, Jonathan Taplin talks about how 4 technocrats are striking at the very foundations of liberal values today. So my takeaway number 3 from all that I have seen, more than ever before, each of us has to inform ourselves of the struggle that it took us to get this individual freedom and liberty that we cherish so much today. It's easy for a handful of leaders to take those away from humanity. Institutions that took decades to build can be destroyed with the stroke of a pen. At the least, we need to be ever watchful about it, if not fight for it. That's my takeaway number 3. I'm going to club takeaway 4 and 5. As I look back from a point where I'm about to draw a line under my professional life, I retire in a few months. I see that I have literally stumbled through a series of missteps and accidents, most of them happy by the grace of God. Each of these moves was the result of gathering storm clouds of some kind or the other. But God offered me a proverbial silver lining in each of them. I will not bore you with the details of the storm clouds or the silver lining. But none of what I ended up doing was the result of premeditated action. For youngsters like you, that makes a horribly bad example. Don't ever try to live my life. But there's something I learned from it all, that life rarely proceeds on a linear, predictable path. Each of those incidents eventually worked out all right for me. Oogway, my favorite teacher, my favorite character, would say, there are no accidents, but I see them as accidents, and I learned to embrace those accidents. So my takeaway number 4 for all of you is that it pays to look out for opportunities in any change that happens in life, even if it's not a change that you wanted, let alone a change that you went after. So as I lived through these changes, I would often question the utility of all the planning I had engaged in. I'm a great planner. I spend hours and hours planning. My jokes in my corporate life would joke at me saying that Sabri suffers from a strange kinds of paralysis of analysis, right? So as I lived through those changes, I questioned the utility of all that planning. It made me think about the role of predeterminism in life. So that's an issue that I was grilled on in my admission interview for IIMB in 1980 by the late Professor H.S.K. Murthy. Since then, it's a question that's been bothering me. But a few years ago, I found an answer to that question in an interview with a gentleman called Ramesh Balsekar. Ramesh Balsekar retired as the president of Bank of India, and he became popular for his exposition of the teachings of Nisargadatta Maharaj. And in that interview, Mr. Balsekar says, I cite the essence of what he says there, go about your life as if you are in charge of your destiny, but acknowledge every moment that you are in control of nothing. I'll repeat just this one takeaway alone. Go about your life as if you are in charge of your destiny, but acknowledge every moment that you are in control of nothing. That advice has stood by me like a lodestone in many moments of personal and professional challenges. Balsekhar's teachings are actually pretty accessible, and they are now available in the form of books. And I would strongly encourage every young and man and woman to go through it sometime. Which finally brings me to the last takeaway for this evening. So I'll dwell on this in a little more detail than I dwelt on the others. So I was raised in a traditional Tamil Brahmin joint family. I was forever surrounded by elders who taught me that the pursuit of wealth was the root cause of unhappiness, if not misery. Growing up in that environment, I developed a disinterest towards the accumulation of wealth, and I ended up in the private equity industry. So even as an investment professional, my interest in making investments was not different from that of a game junkie, believe me. I was in it mainly for the adrenaline rush. And even today, I follow the markets very, very carefully. I don't miss a single day watching the markets. And it gives me the same adrenaline rush. But I don't know to make money. With that backdrop, I must share a conversation which makes me squirm even today. And this is probably the most important thing I want to say this evening. So Bill Draper is a big name in VC. William Draper is a big name in VC. So much so, being in the same room as him was almost a privilege. He was setting up the first foreign VC fund in India in 1994, and he wanted to hire me. He offered me a sizable carried interest or profit share as a partner in the fund. I was all of 35 years. Sitting at that open-air table inside Windsor Manor, I said to Mr. Draper, money does not fascinate me. Between my wife and me, we make more money than we know how to spend. Okay? That has since easily qualified as the silliest moment in my life. Yeah. Even before my children were born. Okay. So the wise and worldly man that Mr. Draper was, he responded, somebody who is asking you to spend that money on yourself. I'm sure there are lots of people around you that you see or know whom you could help with that money. So there's a very profound message in that response of his, which sank into me much, much later. Today, I believe that money is very important. In particular, in the past 30 years or so, somewhat contemporaneously with the fall of the Soviet Union, the role of private wealth has become inescapably important for all societies. Even communist China embraced the accumulation of private wealth around the same time. Many spheres of activity that were the preserves of the state now look up to private capital for support, be it provisioning of social infrastructure like health, education, elderly care, or the creation of new knowledge in the form of R&D, or even philanthropy. The entrepreneur is the new hero in our society. She has replaced royalty, the soldier, the clergy, the philosopher, the politician, the bureaucrat, and the professional who successively replaced each other over the centuries. Given this backdrop, I believe we need to redefine our relationship with wealth in a more nuanced way. The pursuit of wealth in and of itself is probably not bad. What makes the difference between the desirable and the not so desirable is how you accumulate that wealth and how you spend it. In the years that followed my meeting with Mr. Draper, I came to realize from a limited reading that most religions do not frown upon the accumulation of wealth. Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, who led perhaps the simplest life in this world, did not frown upon wealth. His advice, as far as I have read, was that the wealthy should hold their wealth in trust for society, as a custodian for society. To put it in finance speak, and I have resisted the temptation to teach you finance today, because you've had enough of it by now, the assets that you hold in your balance sheet should not be balanced by owner's net worth alone on the liability side. You must acknowledge society or the community as claim holders too. And I think that makes the difference. But as a corollary, that leads me to my takeaway number 6, which is probably provocative, but I will still say it. There isn't anything like enough money ever. There isn't anything like enough money ever. So, if for example, in 9 sigma likelihood that I got as wealthy as Mr. Mukesh Ambani, there's a 9 sigma likelihood, I would think, I would still not stop. I would go out and amass more money. And I don't stop at that. That's the only advice I give to my 18-year-old sons. Go out and make as much money as you can, but spend it in a responsible way. So that's pretty much all I had to say. It's been a very long speech. It's been largely autobiographical in style, but I did so because I know only too well that if I were to write my autobiography, none of you would even read it, let alone buy it. Right? So not even my doting wife, not just you, not even my doting wife, my sons who anyways think that I'm crazy. So I didn't want to miss inflicting my life story on a captive audience when I have one. Right? I don't know if what I said has any relevance to you, but I hope I managed to share some reflections along with a lot of that first-person singular stories of my life. So as I close, I ask myself if I should feel satisfied with what I have done in my life so far. And these are very poignant lines, so forgive me if I sort of lose my composure a little bit. I can't say this without getting emotional. I'm reminded of these lines from the poem of an unknown Confederate soldier. I read it in the book We the People, written by Nani Palkiwala, eminent jurist. I read it more than 35 years ago. And the lines that I remember very distinctly are the following. I got nothing that I asked for, but everything that I had hoped for. I got nothing that I asked for, but I got everything that I had hoped for. Almost despite myself, my unspoken prayers were answered. Almost despite myself, my unspoken prayers were answered. I am among all men, most richly blessed. I'm still pinching myself to make sure that this evening is not one of those countless dreams I get every day in the wee hours of dawn. I can't believe that I'm here in front of you as part of Pragya. For a long time, as long as my fading memory works, and it's fading, this evening will waft back into my mind. Because as the playwright James Barrie is supposed to have said, God gave us memory so that we might have roses in December. Roses in December is also the title of the memoirs of M.C. Chagla, another eminent jurist. It's time for me to shut up now. I've been up for very long. I've spoken for too long. Before I do so, I wish to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Really, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I must also thank Professor Srinivasan, Chairperson PGP, and Kavita Kumar, Head of Communications, who helped me in ways that I will not get into here. But before I decided on being here, I was muddling through some confusion, as I always do, in typical British services style, civil services style. The British civil services are supposed to have managed most of ruling India by muddling through situations. That's what they say. So both of these people played an important part in my being here this evening. Thank you very much, Kavita. Thank you, Professor Srinivasan. My thanks to the wonderful family that God has blessed me with. My parents, my wife, my siblings, my in-laws, and my twin sons, the two totally irreverent Gen Zs in my house. My prayerful best wishes to all of you, and all of those who in the past 21 odd years have endured my classes with fortitude. What else can I say? That God bless you all with happiness throughout your life, uninterrupted. Thank you very much. Nandi, namaskar.
Thank you, Professor Sabridathan, for such inspiring words. You possess such extraordinary qualities that even your seemingly ordinary life serves as a profound lesson. Introducing an exceptional individual with so many accomplishments is never easy, but I would still give it a try. In the realm of academia and social impact, there exists a luminary whose influence extends far beyond the conventional boundaries of research and education. Renowned as the most cited researcher on the Indian demographic dividend, she navigated family pressure with remarkable grace, balancing the aspirations of a college-going daughter and the support of a successful husband. She defied societal norms and embarked on an ICSSR fellowship to Germany. During chilly, rainy days in Germany, she delved into unconventional research topics, challenging the norms of business school academia. Yet, her passion for social responsibility transcends academic pursuits. She created a website, Teach CSR, tailored for educators, keen on integrating corporate social responsibility into Indian curriculum. Her conviction in the power of storytelling to engender empathy and understanding underscores her philosophy on leadership, where stories serve as catalysts for transformation. Her leading initiatives like Tanmatra, program for women executives, a captivating course on careers, Arhitra, a leadership accelerator program, and many more. She exemplifies innovation and empowerment in the academic sphere. She is also at the helm of monetizing the impact of IIMB a company with the scale of influence in millions, and thus emerges an enigma. No point for guessing who this is. Please welcome Professor Srinivasan.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Rishi, Rahul, Srini, for having me here. And Shabri, that was a difficult act after that, okay? But just sitting here listening to Shabri, he was my neighbor for several years. And I deeply now connect because he's also an alumni from here and we have a lot of shared history. And I wish we could listen more to our colleagues more often, and it doesn't need to take this evening to do that. Where I'm going to begin is weave 3 learnings, no more than that, into my life story. The first and the most important one, and many of you are aware, and I think those of you who spend time with my class know this, and I keep talking about it, which is that having spent so many years between corporate, academia, consulting, public policy, one is always confused what one is. Because when you're working with multiple audiences, what do you bring to the table? Why am I mentioning this? Because all of us will go through this identity crisis at different points in our life, okay? So that's the place that I want to begin, to just share with you, in some ways, my life journey, and just bring, because there are several women here, and I'd like to kind of address you. And more importantly, the men in this class, you're going to be in dual career households. Your spouse will have aspirations. And I think the norm of the kind of spouse that women want to the norm of the kind of professional you want to be, there will be the reality of those tensions that you have to navigate in a way such that 35 years later, both of you will feel proud of the journeys that you have had. Okay? So in some way, this is the canvas that I want to share with you. So often you see us at this destination, and like Shabri rightly pointed out, there's a long journey behind this. And like Shabri said, limited edition. I thought that was such a powerful word because there is a limited edition, which is you with your unique experiences. Okay? So I'm just going to circle back to 1980s, early 80s, when I was graduating from college. No aspiration whatsoever, because nobody in my family had ever gone to college. No women went to college. We just got married after 12th, okay? So you can imagine this person, first my parents wanted me to go to college. So I am at this beautiful Jyotinivas College in Bangalore, not a care in the world, didn't know what would happen, but just knew that I would be married off, okay? Loved my college days, made amazing friends out there, did things that nobody thought of, primarily because I saw college as an opportunity to be myself. An all-women's college empowered me in ways that I had never thought of. And that was where my first male ally, now I know the word to use, but this incredible shy young professor who came to teach us accounting turned out to be my strongest mentor. He's no more. But from then on, I also want to leave with all of you the power that people can have to change your lives. So 83, graduating from college, absolutely dreams. And then I discover that my father was the sole breadwinner of the family. And I've often not shared this story, so it will be new for many of you, is the fact that we were 3 daughters and my grandmother was with us. 5 women, one breadwinner of the family who's been diagnosed as cardiac problem. He was in the government, and the only hospital then that was available in the south was the railway hospital, where they couldn't accommodate him. And more interestingly, at Apollo, where we could not afford. So in '83, I had to become the breadwinner for the family because my dad was going to be out for 2 years. At that point in time, I had a BCom degree and didn't have a clue on what I was going to do. Okay? Why is this important? Because for many of you in this room, and I know I have spoken to some of you, both men and women here, you come from families where there may be no role models. Okay? Is it easy? It's not easy. But the fact is that you need to keep looking around you to find those role models. So my first one is, yes, there are situations which will throw you totally out of control. What do you do then? Fortunately, I go back to networks. My networks helped me. Okay? Somebody went up to Jyotinivas College and asked the principal of the college whether she would be able to recommend someone who would be able to speak. And needless to say, my colleagues will be laughing over this, right? I don't stop speaking. But the fact is, that became my asset. And the college recommended my name, and the organization that I was joining was a voluntary blood donation nonprofit, and was actually supported by the TTK group. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Prestige Pressure Cooker. So, all my education I thought that I had till then really didn't seem to be of great use when I turned up in this job. My second takeaway, that if there was Professor Nagabhushan at Jyotinivas College who shaped me into becoming what I could, Lata Jagannathan, who's one of the most reputed people in Bangalore, and the kind of incredible work she's done, was my mentor. She came home because she had to persuade my grandmother that I could come to work. And she told her that it's my responsibility to take care of your granddaughter. Okay? So to me, she's special because that experience of 2 years, for me, the penny dropped. I knew I wanted to be in HR. I don't know anything else. I love what I do. Okay? And I think all of you who've encountered me in the class have seen that after all these years, I do not see myself as anything other than someone who works in the field of people. Then somebody told me that I should apply to XLRI because that was the only place where to go if you wanted to do HR. And believe you me, it's so embarrassing today to think about it, but I didn't know of the IIMs. I just went and applied to XLRI, took the exam, and got through. And then another milestone. I had no money to pay for my fees. Our neighbor stepped up, and she came and said that she will support me. Because 4 of members of her family who had taken this exam earlier could not get through, and she felt that my father should be able to send me. 2 years, I think XLRI made me who I am. 3 things that I believe, and that's why I talk about identity. First, and the most important one, is the fact that you need competence. You need competence because competence allows you to influence. But the second one, which I found over the years, which is important, is you need perspective. Perspectives allow you to see what others bring to the table. Perspective shapes how you see the world around you. Perspectives allow you to draw connections where there may be none or there may be several. And it's that perspective at XLRI that allowed me to be the person I am today. The last one that I have to attribute to XLRI, and in particular to a wonderful male mentor, again, Father McGrath. And I'm going to narrate this story to tell you how profound people can influence. And I think Shabri said it in one way, and I'm just going to iterate because his learnings, more or less, kind of capture beautifully a lot of my experiences. And I'm sure this is one of those funny things that I keep narrating. So here was I, this ambitious, competitive, needing to be the best in what I am doing, primarily for the fact that Nobody before me has done anything like this, so I had to show my parents, show the world around me. So I walk up there, and then this father was teaching basic managerial skills, and he calls me to his room. So there is one assignment, which is a book review. So all the students were asked to pick up their book reviews, and then he tells me, Vasanti, you will come. And he's an American, this tall, handsome American, who says, come to my office and I will give you a book. Now, already you can imagine, right? The batch is wondering, why is it that she was called out? So I walk up to his office, and then he says, I think you should review this book. And then I pick up the book, and I just died of embarrassment. The book was titled, Why Am I Afraid to Love? And just imagine you're walking back, and there are all your batchmates sitting there saying, so what book did you get? And I'm showing them this book. And of course, comments of, yeah, find your life partner at Excel. And I was kind of ragged for several days on that. But that book was so profound because it subsequently shaped a lot of what I did. The book basically said that compassion is going to be an important aspect. And compassion is about self before you can actually be compassionate to anyone else. And it was written by a priest who was actually working with the marginalized sections of society. At that point in time, I began to work with brick kiln workers. I couldn't speak Hindi properly. So the father assigned me. So the brick kiln workers' children taught me Hindi, and I taught them English. So why am I mentioning all this? Because a lot of times people talk about the work that I do on social impact. Okay? So when you're passionate about something, it's a product of several of your life experiences, all of them never linear. Because it is this understanding of what it means to look at vulnerability. It is this understanding of what it means to be a woman. It's this understanding of what it means when circumstances come together in ways that you're unable to anticipate. It's a coming together of all this that allows you to be able to sit at different places and see, how can I enable policies? How can I enable organizations? How can I enable communities? How can I enable, so the whole idea of having some lived experience that allows you to do this, okay? So now, after XLRI, I go to Wipro campus recruitment, everything that Shabri said. I worked with the founding team of Mindtree, worked with several people who then went on to become entrepreneurs. But what stayed with me in Wipro was just one thing. And I think that was fairly, again, one of those defining moments where I took a decision to reject a candidate and did not know that it was an MLA's son. The MLA and the party turned up at the Wipro office and were screaming and shouting. And they basically were saying that there was this chip of a girl who was a secretary who interviewed my son, who's an engineer and was rejected. And they wanted to meet Mr. Premji or Mr. Suta. My greatest lesson in leadership was that neither of them, they asked my boss's boss for the data. And when he provided, neither of them said that they would come anywhere near to talk to the MLA. And they said that when we hired her as a professional, we trust that she's behaved professionally. I was not asked any questions, nothing, and my boss's boss was asked to actually go and resolve the situation. For a young campus recruit, nothing can be more empowering than something like that. It makes you not just believe in the organization, but it makes you believe in yourself in ways that you will not think. I call this a defining moment because each one of you here will have those defining moments in the next few years. Okay. Interesting. In hindsight, one of those foolish things that you do. How did I end up at IIM Bangalore? I never wanted to be an academic. Never. I was having a review with my boss at Wipro, and he turned around and he said, we are promoting you to the head of HR of technologies. I told him, but I don't want to do that role. So he turned around and said, but it's a promotion and they are asking for you. So I said, no, but I don't want to do that role, and I have told you earlier also. So he said, what's the role you want to do? And then I said, I want to do HR training. And so he turned around and said, look, if you have to get there, there are only two ways. One is you need to have gray hair or you need to have a PhD. That's it. And then I literally took that word very seriously, took my cat and came to IIMB. And by then I was married, right? And after that, when I went to my manager and I showed him the letter that I had, offer letter from IIM Bangalore, he was just so appalled. Okay? I said, he said, but why did you do this? I said, you were the one who told me that I won't be able to get that job. And after that, the issue, I had to go through multiple levels because sometimes organizations unintentionally signal, and I think we literally pick up the signal. And I did that for sure. Sometimes I have contemplated whether, Wipro was the place for me. I still have I have a great deal of affection for that organization. But like Rishi said, the networks at Wipro have supported me 20 years at IIM Bangalore. They have given me access. Every time that I want to study a phenomena, Wipro has been there for me. So long after you're gone, your networks continue to stay with you. And that's the piece that I'm just affirming a lot of things that people have said, just saying that, yes, it works and it has worked. What does the IIMB do to me? Okay? And I think IIMB is very special in many ways for the simple reason that when I came into IIMB, I was this HR professional. When I left IIMB after my doctoral program, I became a business person. Why is this transition so important, right? It's important because that's the time that you come to the strategy table. So leadership, development, strategy, all of those areas, opportunities outside opened up from there. Like I told you, I'm an accidental academic, never wanted to be an academic. I left campus, went into consulting. Again, another defining moment in consulting. At one point in time, I was most known for the work I did on performance management. I worked with all the big five at that point in time, looking at performance management systems. After 2.5 years in consulting, with a boutique consulting, I realized that after a point in time, you've reached your level of incompetence. And when you've reached your level of incompetence, you're most valuable to the organization. Because all that you need to do is to prepare a deck of slides. 30 minutes. And what were you going to be billed for the fact that you've spent all your time? And at one point in time, I told my manager saying that I don't want to do this project. He said, no, this client is very important to acquire. So we got that project. And he said, we will quote unreasonably. Except that he didn't realize that when they quoted unreasonably, the client agreed. And that's the time that I felt I had sold my soul. How much of effort commensurates with what you can bill? And then you began to ask some existential questions. Are you worth what you're being paid? I want to leave this with you, particularly those of you who are going to land up in jobs that pay exponentially. At some point in time, you will realize that what you're being paid for, does it actually represent the value you're creating? And that's a question only you can answer for yourself. Organization will see the time that you spend lesser and lesser on a client as more and more valuable. Okay? It was after that and around that time that I came into IIM Bangalore. Okay? So and every 5 years in IIMB has been a new experience. 2004, I started on gender diversity, much before it became the fad that it is today. 2009, I went into work in the area of responsible business. 2013, I came back, 14, 15, with Jose and Padmini, created the leadership development program for women. Right now, I'm looking at human rights and business. So I think what IIMB has taught me is that either you have to reinvent yourself or the external environment will force you to reinvent yourself. And as I look at the next 5 to 10 years for each one of you, I think 3 things stand out. I have no advice to offer you, but I definitely have some sense of perspective. First and the most important one is that I don't know today, being the chair of digital, I don't know how technology and human come together. Every day, I ask myself, how relevant am I when technology comes in? And this is going to be important because we don't understand technology and its capabilities. So if I have to augment technology, what should I continuously upskill? I don't know. But I can just tell you that it is in that milieu that you have to figure out your careers. Second one, as I look at the world around us, income inequality is increasing, wealth inequality is increasing, access to resources is actually creating a lot more challenges. In this kind of a world, diversity and inclusion will be the new norm. Why is this important? I gave you an example earlier of several male mentors who brought me here. And I cannot tell you the colleagues that I've had at IIM Bangalore. I mean, I can't even pick them by name because the kind of doors that they've opened, I think one is able to influence from there. For each one of you sitting in this room, act as male allies because diversity and inclusion is at your doorstep. Okay? You might have hundreds of questions around it, but what's important is to recognize this new reality into which you're going. Third one, I hate to say this because on this day, we should be wishing you great as you kind of go out of here. But you can be sure, and many of you have already experienced it this year, you can be sure in the next 10 years as you look at your careers that there will be situations of job losses. There will be exits, and those are the new realities. How well are you prepared financially, personally, and career to be able to tide over these difficult times is something that I'd like for each one of you to invest. Nobody will teach you this. Career planning, well before that, financial planning and personal planning are so central before you can do career planning. Let me then kind of now move to looking at what do I want to say to the women. Dream and dream big. In hindsight, when I look at it as myself and my journey, I think I dreamt too small. Today, as I sit here, dream. There is no cost to a dream. There's no price to pay for a dream. Why am I saying this especially to the women? It is equally applicable to every one of you sitting in this because there's research that says that women don't dream and don't dream big. Second, to the women here, know that your career and your life is an ebb and flow. There will be breaks. There will be time when you will go slow. But please stay put. Don't quit. Because the probability of women returning after they have quit is so much lesser compared to just stay. Take on part-time, take on flexible, take on whatever it is and don't give a damn to what people tell you that you're not a professional or you're not competent, you're a quota candidate. Boss, don't give a damn. 10 years later, nobody is going to remember that. Third, this is again for the women. Navigate career. But please, if you have dreams of family or having children, please don't delay that. Because my research shows very clearly that professional women tend to delay having children. And we know today that there are a whole set of issues around fertility, and this is for men and women, and we don't talk about it enough. My request to you is, be proud to be a woman. The fact that you can be a child bearer is an exclusive prerogative of yours. Why would I quit to invest in a career in an organization that asks me to forego my biological right? Is it even worth it? And these are questions I'm laying it out for you today, primarily because research over and over is showing that women are delaying their having children. Okay. Last one for the women is that if you don't know the destination, don't worry. And I loved Shabri's last statement on that. Just flow with the river. It will take you somewhere. And possibly, at some point in time, You can figure how you want to change it, but just stay the course, stay the course. To the men in this room, I have two requests. One, the pressure on you is going to increase for the simple reason that society today asks for egalitarian men. Many of you in this room have sisters. You will have spouses. Just for a moment, we know that in India, household chores, the time that women spend on household chores is not commensurate anywhere with the kind of time that women spend either globally or in comparison with men. If it means taking a plate and putting it in the sink, if it means loading the laundry, please step up. It's male to support, because traditionally we know that men are privileged. And we are not going to dispute that. Okay? Just help, step up, support. Okay? Second, if you are in a dual career family, and let me share with you, there will be angst. You will be growing, and at the same time, your spouse will also be growing. So if you ask me to touch my heart and say, would our careers get impacted? Yes. My husband he was very clear he wanted to be a CEO. He was a CEO at 42. And at 55, he retired. But till the time that he became a CEO, I put my career in slow track. Do I have regrets now? I don't. For the simple reason that it doesn't matter where you held. Because after that, the race is usually easy because you've kind of thought through it and you know that you're doing it deliberately. Okay? So my request to you is, please pace your careers, because at the end of the day, nothing is more important than personal happiness. Okay? Last, that be a champion, stand the course for women, be the male ally, and above all, I think the most important thing would be that you lead the way for that 50% of India's women to be able to step up wherever you are in your sphere of influence. And to the graduating batch, what more can I say? No more words of wisdom other than what Stephen Covey said. There's a circle of concern everywhere. Let me work on my circle of influence. Be the change that you can be, because that is sufficient for the world to change around you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor, for such a dynamic and trailblazing speech.
Now, the professor we are about to introduce has a very unconventional journey. As the co-founder of ADR, Association of Democratic Reforms, he is dedicated to strengthening the democratic fabric of India. Look at his very recent groundbreaking work in bringing the transparency in political funding through reforms in electoral bonds. His journey of social impact began with a bold move, filing a PIL against the political leader in Delhi High Court, signaling a commitment to transparency and accountability in governance. He is a hardcore decision science professor, but make no mistake, he teaches Hindu philosophy and social entrepreneurship. Beyond academia and activism, he runs Farm Veda, a farmers' cooperative, and boasts a personal cold press setup at home, a testament to his hands-on approach in life. He drove his SUV across town, providing groceries and essential supplies to the needy during the COVID lockdown. Listening to the professor becomes even more important as we embark on our corporate career, so that in frenzy of corporate life, we should not forget our social responsibilities. As the narrative unfolds, the wheel over the identity of this remarkable individual gradually lifts, revealing the name Trilochan Shastri, an embodiment of intellect, activism, and pragmatic idealism. Please welcome Professor Shastri on the stage.
So good evening, dear young friends, and also to our colleagues and other visitors here. The previous speakers have made the job much easier. So we are going to talk about you now. We heard about the professor, so the plan is to talk about you. So as you leave this campus, new challenges, opportunities, exciting new experiences, new countries, you are going to see a lot of life which you have never seen before, and I actually envy you. Yeah, so best wishes, and I hope you have a grand time in the coming months, because this is the honeymoon phase when you are going to learn a lot. At IIM Bangalore, you may be surprised to know that the primary reason for the government to then set up the IIMs was for you people. Because you are the reason for the existence of IIMs, because we want, the country needed professional managers, and there you are. And so therefore, at the institute, we very much care for you, and we want that you should do well. So you are graduating from the best business school in the country, and what advice can you give to such people? I do not know. So I'm going to begin with Shakespeare. So in Hamlet, Polonius tells his son, Laertes, who is about to leave home and go for distant lands to seek his fortune, I'm just quoting. So he's telling his son, "This above all, to thine own self be true. And it must follow as the night the day, thou canst then not be false to any man." The real takeaway here is be true to yourself. There was a very popular American singer called Sammy Davis Jr. He had a hit song in the 60s called "I Gotta Be Me." So I'm just quoting a few lines from that song. He says, "I gotta be me, I gotta be me. What else can I do but what I am?" And later on he says, "I can't be right for somebody else if I am not right for me." So this idea, if we come back to India, we give it a slightly spiritual or religious turn. In the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about swadharma. Just like being true to your own self, or I got to be me, the Bhagavad Gita at least twice uses the word swadharma. So it says, Shreyan Swadharma means your own swadharma is superior, even if done badly, than doing somebody else's dharma perfectly. So following your own swadharma, all the three guys are saying this. Shakespeare is saying this, Sammy Davis Jr. is saying this, Bhagavad Gita is saying this. Now, it begs the question, what is my swadharma? That's a question that you have to answer for yourself. Those of us who are privileged to have choices, we have to decide this. So here is some thoughts on that, like how do I figure out what my swadharma is? Now, at a very basic level, our swadharma is to be happy. But then it begs the question, how do I be happy? What kind of a life should I lead? What action should I take? So let me place before you some choices that you have all exercised, and maybe you'd like to consider some of these things. So most of you have chosen a corporate career, and we will assume to begin with that if you are successful, you will be happy. And I think that's largely true, by the way. Now, how do you become successful? So there are a lot of theories, but I'm going to take a personal for you view on this. You see, if you look at the CEOs of many of the companies, India's biggest company has a chairman who doesn't have an MBA. One of the world's largest companies, Microsoft, has a CEO who did a part-time weekend MBA. So the point I'm trying to make is that having an MBA and a good grade card may or may not ensure success. So then what does it take? So I'll just add one thing to the wealth of literature there for your consideration. Before a company gives you higher responsibility, it has to have confidence in you and it has to trust you. It has to have confidence that you can take on that higher responsibility, that you will deliver results, that you will not create problems but actually solve them. Many companies also have an ethos or a culture. They would like to know whether you subscribe to their values, whether you fit in with the culture, and so on and so forth. So these are some things that you may like to consider while you're trying to be successful, and it goes very well with what some of the other people said, that you must understand yourself and understand others so that people have that trust or confidence in you. So I'll just leave it with that. Build the company's trust and confidence in you. You may also like to think whether you want to be in a small company where you can grow fast and you have the opportunity of actually growing with the company and taking it to higher heights, or you want to be a part of a large corporation. Again, so the same question I'm going to repeat. Does this fit in with your Swadharma? Do you want to do that or not? You can answer that. Nobody else can answer that. So let's look at another option. Some people say, well, I don't think I want to work in a large company. I don't think I can fit into this culture, this and that. So I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Now, what does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? Again, there are hundreds of ideas. I'll just add one more to them. Without exception, all entrepreneurs have something. They have enormous energy. They have enormous focus and commitment. And they have the ability to work hard, not for a week or a day or a month, but for years together. Mr. Narayan Murthy is an example of that. Does that excite you? It also requires you to be bold, take risky decisions, seize opportunities, and make things happen. Of course, the rewards of being a successful entrepreneur, nobody has to tell you. You become wealthy, you get respect of society, you create jobs, you add value to society, to consumers through the products and services you offer, and you can make other kinds of impact. But again, you have to ask yourself that whether you want to be an entrepreneur, everything has a price to pay. If you are in the corporate sector, you have to adjust. If you are in the entrepreneurial, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to take risks. Some people say, I'm not interested in wealth and success, so I want to be academic. So some of us are sitting here. Why should somebody be an academic? Many of these MBAs also, they end up, getting into academics. It is a calling rather than a career, because you have to love reading, writing, thinking, and teaching. You also get a lot of freedom. You don't have any bosses. Just like if you're an entrepreneur, you are the boss. In academics, you neither have a boss nor you are a boss of anybody else. It also gives you a chance of influencing things beyond your little organization, which you don't have in the other two careers. So I'll give you two examples, extreme examples, but just to provoke thought. Albert Einstein is a well-known guy, right? I think most of us have heard of him. But nobody knows who was the president of Princeton University when he was there. Michael Porter made a big name for himself. Who was the dean of the Harvard Business School when Michael Porter was there? Nobody knows. Back home in India, one of our professors was Professor Kiran Seth. He made a huge impact, of course, not in the thought leadership world, but he founded Spic McCabe, which many of you are aware of, and he's been at it for 30, 40 years. We had the privilege of learning from him. There must have been 7 or 8 directors of IIT Delhi when he was a professor. Nobody remembers their names, but everybody remembers Kiran Seth. The point I'm trying to make is that academics also gives you an opportunity to do something, but you have to decide whether scholarship, reading, writing, thinking is for you or not. That's your choice. And you have to trade off, because like everywhere there's a trade-off. You get freedom, but maybe you don't end up making so much money. Now, many of our, we are in touch with your seniors, alumni all over the country. Some of them end up as writers, some of them end up as musicians. One of your seniors gave up a corporate career because she wanted to be a musician. One of them is a well-known sports commentator. I think you all know whom I'm referring to. And some of them become motivational speakers, and a few of them actually end up as spiritual gurus and have become monks. So there is a whole lot of variety. Now, the problem arises when you have choice. You have to exercise that choice, and you have to exercise it asking that same question. What is my swadharma? What is it that I like to do? What is it that will make me happy? Your two team members who came to speak to me, asking me to speak here, they said I should say a little bit about social entrepreneurship. So, well, here goes. That's another option. So in social entrepreneurship, it's a big buzzword nowadays. And I've seen the sector at close quarters for more than 2 decades. I'll tell you one thing that stands out, which is very positive. That is, the fun and excitement of the early days have to be experienced. It cannot be described. It reminds you of a poem written by Wordsworth. Bliss it was in that dawn to be alive, and very heaven to be young. He said it in a different context, but I've seen these young people who take into this, they are so happy. It's not for everybody, but you wonder, why are they happy? Freedom. Freedom from having to earn money and success. Freedom from having to prove yourself and achieve something. Free to do what you really love, which is to do good to the people and to the society. It's that freedom which makes them happy, and I have met many of them. They're all happy people. They're not mentally stressed. It actually reminds me of a song which was a hit song when we were kids, which Wahida Rahman sings in Guide. It says, "Aaj phir jeene ki tamanna hai, aaj phir marne ka irada hai." She's so happy because she has just become free. So if you love that freedom, then social entrepreneurship is for you, but it's not for everybody. Now, a lot of highly qualified people have actually joined the social sector. Your last year's distinguished alumni, Samina Bano, she had a day zero job and she was working in New York in one of the top consulting firms. And now she's sitting in Lucknow and she has put 4 lakh underprivileged kids back to school. So that is her calling. So she decided that that's what I want to do. So you have to decide what you want to do. Vijay Mahajan, he's also an MBA, much senior to me. He was a pioneer in the field, and he now claims to have retired, but such people never really retire. He's a happy guy, and he's made a huge difference. He was the pioneer of the microfinance industry in India. So there is a huge impact you can make also as a social entrepreneur. But again, you have to talk about what is your swadharma. Now, many of our speakers also talked about handling life. Today we hear that there is a lot of mental stress. But I can tell you one thing, even if you don't get into the social work full time, a little bit of that reduces mental stress a lot. Now again, your organizer said that I should speak a little bit about religion. So what does religion have to say about all these things? So a few minutes on that and then I'll close. So as far as doing good to society and charity, I'll first start with that and then close with something else. So I will quote from all the religions. So in Hinduism, we say Manav Seva is Madhav Seva. Means serving people is like serving God. It's an old cliche. And Vivekananda says it's a privilege to serve mankind, for this is the true worship of God. And there are many Hindu sayings like Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, means may the whole world be happy, and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is the world is my family, etc. But let's see what the other religions have to say. In Judaism, they say love thy neighbor as thyself. In fact, Jesus says later on that this is the second greatest commandment. Love thy neighbor as thyself means that be good to people and be kind to them and do good things to them. And in Christianity, of course, is entirely based on charity. And one of the things they say about Jesus himself is the Son of Man has come not to be served, but to serve. So what they're trying to tell us is if Jesus Christ himself has come to serve, then why the hell can't we do some service? So this idea of service and seva, I've already quoted 3 religions. In Buddhism, the Buddha says very often in that, if you read his sayings, he uses 2 words, metta and karuna. Kindness and compassion. Again and again he uses that word. And he gives a great commandment, if you like. He says, Bahujana hitaya, bahujana sukhaya, lokanumpaya. What he's saying, for the good of all, for the welfare of all. Lokanumpaya means for the good of the whole world. Act in that way, he's saying. In the Quran, you'll be surprised to know, it's a very short text, only 6,000 verses. Several times the idea of zakat is charity, is there in the Quran. In fact, the Quran goes on to say that the poor have a right on part of the wealth of the wealthy. So this idea of charity is imbued there in all the religions. In Sikhism, they say, Vand Chakho. Among the 3 pillars of Sikhism, one of them is Vand Chakho, means share your wealth and resources with everybody. So all these langars and kar seva that you see is very much part of Sikhism. And in Jainism, among their 5 vows, dana or charity is one of the 5 vows that the Jains are supposed to take. So this idea of charity is there in all the religions. Why is it there? My take on that is that it is one aspect of your swadharma because it makes you happy. The religions are telling you that. So let me take it to a slightly higher level. They talk about yagna. Yagna is sacrifice. What is this yagna? So let me leave you with this thought. Some people, they use all the talents, intelligence, education, capabilities, and most important, their energy, not merely for themselves, but for the good of the organization they may work in, for the good of the people around them in the organization, for the good of the family, for the good of the society, for the good of the nation, and if possible, for the good of the world. So all of you have all these things. You have your talent, you're intelligent, educated, you have great networks. What are you going to use it for? You may have wealth. If you are using it only for yourself, God bless you, please do that. But if you are using it for the good of everybody, you make your own life blessed. You make the life of people around you blessed. It doesn't matter what choice you make, whether you're in the corporate sector or social sector. If you work with that attitude, your life is already blessed. But all of us are not going to go to that level. So I will leave you with this one thought. The Gita says, Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. If you know a little bit of Hindi or Sanskrit, you can understand that. Even a little practice of this dharma, all these dharmas which you are talking about, saves you from great fear. So that's what I wanted to say. And 2-3 things which some of our speakers have already said, I will want to reiterate. One is look after both your mental and physical health. Mental health, well, there are tomes about it, but I will just mention 2 things, which other speakers have also mentioned, which is make friends. Not only on Facebook, but with the face next to you. The friends are a great source because you are going to go out in the world. Immediately your family will not be there. You will be in some country, with all mostly strangers and others. So make friends. And second thing, which I've found very useful in many people's lives, including my own, is try to meet outstanding people. There are lots of good people out there in the world. Make that effort to meet good people doing outstanding work. There are many of them. My choice has always been to go and meet people from the social sector who have actually dedicated lives for the good of society, but you can make your own choice. Try to meet outstanding people and develop connections with them. They can raise you from depression and take you to higher levels. That is about mental health. Make friends and meet great people as much as you can. And on the physical health, I don't have to tell you. I mean, if you don't have physical health, all these advices will go out of the window. You won't be able to achieve anything in life. So I'm going to close here. And dear friends, have a great life ahead. And may you be successful and happy. And may you make us all feel proud of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Shastri, for such inspiring words. The students will remain in awe for your speech for a very long time. Now, I would like to request all the dignitaries to come up on stage for question and answer session. Now, we would like to open the floor to Q&A session. If you want to ask any question, please raise your hand. Student academic committee members will come to you. There is Arpita on the back side, Vivek in the middle, and Raghavendra on the right hand side.
I have a question to Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan, ma'am. So I was just curious. So during my internship only, I'm a fresher for the record. During my internship only, within those 2 months, I felt a lot of monotony set in, and I was just dying to get back on campus. So it's just, I do not understand how, after all these years, you still go to the class with the same level of excitement and energy. So how do you keep that energy alive? And any advice to the freshers out here as to how to deal with work, because it's very scary?
Two things. One, like I told you, I'm extremely passionate about what I do. Okay, so just that if you're passionate about something, I don't think, and all of you have experienced this, right? The subjects you loved, the courses you liked, you were willing to put in whatever effort you wanted. So I think that's the first one. I also get bored. I mean, it's not like I don't get bored. One of my mentors once told me that the day you are able to say that 80% of the work you do, you enjoy, I think you have a great life. So for the first few years, I think, I cannot agree with you. It was just sheer grunt work, okay? Do I need to put in that? And I think the point that Trilochan said is very valuable, because you have to build trust. Yes, it is boring. Yes, it is monotonous. And then keep an eye to see if there is something that's exciting. Hear about it, think about it, but you don't necessarily have to act on it, yeah? But till you build trust, right, exciting stuff does not come my way. So to that extent, how do you trade off between doing the mundane and yet be able to keep your spirit up? I think that's something you have to cultivate. The second one that I can just give you as a piece of advice that somebody gave me that helped me was, often, and I think Srini made this statement, how often do we sit back and say, what did I learn from this experience? Terrible experiences, whatever happens, and that is something I've continued even till today. I look at things and say, I'm grateful. And gratitude has helped me immensely. And given what I shared, right, I have a lot of things to be grateful for. So I think between gratitude and passion, I think you'll have the energy to keep doing what you want to do.
I have a question for all of you, but specifically Professor Srinivasan sir. One thing that I've learned from you is about sincerity. Would you like to say anything on the same for many of us who will leave their first jobs within 1 year of joining?
The last part of your question, I didn't hear it clearly.
Yeah. So would you like to say anything for many of us who will leave their first jobs within first year of joining?
I personally don't think leaving your first job in the first year says anything about your sincerity. On the contrary, I think many people leave because they find that they are not able to deliver to their, fuller sincerity. It's not the other way around. At least in most of the cases, it isn't. And the only thing I want to say in response to your question is, I think in today's world, we tend to beat ourselves up a lot about things that we think we don't have, attributes we think we don't have. Recently I read about this idea called the imposter syndrome. You might want to look it up on Google sometime. So I think there is a lot of that in many of us today. It's there in me for sure, it's there in many young people for sure. So I think we are all essentially sincere. I mean, we draw our sense of relevance, if I may use that word, from being sincere in what we do. You take that away from us, what would we all be, right? So I think just give yourself credit for what you actually are, what you really do. And I think each of us is sincere. And that's not pep talk. I genuinely mean what I said.
Hi, professors. I'm Shreya. So I had a question for no one in particular, but I mean, throughout the course of these 2 years, I've encountered people who are incredibly talented at what they do, whether it's extracurriculars, whether it's academics, whether it's, professionally. But I think one aspect in which we could potentially improve is being nicer and kinder as a cohort. So I think, is there something that IIM Bangalore can do structurally, whether it's through academics or through the curriculum or through some structural change in which we can imbibe kindness, if not altruism, amongst people around here?
There was a line I removed from my speech, as you know, was prepared, and it was already pretty long. And there was a line I removed from that. I'll just talk about that line. It's not a direct answer to your question. So when I look back at my life, and I'm fairly old now, so it's around the time people start thinking, what will I do next in my next birth, and that sort of stuff. And I said, if I have to ask God for something for my next birth, what would that be? I said, it would be to make me a better human being. Better than at least what I've been in this birth, right? And if possible, work towards that ideal goal of being Abu Ben Adam, who loved his own men, right? So the point I'm making is that I think this desire to be a better version of yourself is there in all of us. Unfortunately, it manifests at various points in time in our lives. And my own belief is that at some point in time, it'll manifest in all of us. It's taken me 65 years to realize that. You'll probably all get there much earlier than me.
So I have one question. So at some point of a time in our life, that even though we are not satisfied, we need to be find happiness. And by holding all these emotions, how to navigate our aspiration and how to build our aspiration by holding all these happiness, even though we are unsatisfied with what we have right now.
I can take a shot at it. There are, in different stages of our life, I think our definitions of material happiness change. So to that extent, be unhappy with something that at that point in time that somebody else has that you don't have, I think it will exist. The only way to balance that is to do a little bit more holistically your assessment. What do you have? See, often I find that we compare what we don't have with what others have. But what we don't compare with is what we have with what others don't have. I know it's like one of those complicated things, but just quite simply, I'm just saying the more you compare with others, the more unhappy I have found myself to be. So I think if you have 4-5 dimensions to measure your happiness, overall you may be more happy. That's, very simple. Do I have friends whom I can call out to? Do I have a strong support system? Am I reasonably well recognized at work? Do I have the job that pays me the most? Now, if you put 4-5 criteria like this, right? Including, is my family proud of me? Because that for many of you is an important attribute. So when you take 5-6 dimensions like this, you're more likely to feel happier than unhappier with where you are.
Thank you so much, professors. My question is actually, I don't know if it is a relevant question, but just not me. Many of us have this feeling now we have to behave as responsibles. Till now we could do everything and anything and be like immature, irresponsible and kids. Now we have to grow up, go out and behave like responsible adults. How do we deal with that?
No, she's been saying that, why am I silent? It's a very good question. Actually, I'm trying to trivialize it, although it's an important question. Survival instinct will make sure that you behave responsibly. Don't worry. We don't have a death wish. You will be able to handle it. Lots of people have handled it over the years, and you will also handle it. Good common sense and survival instinct will make you behave responsibly. Don't worry about it. You don't have to make a big deal of it.
Who told you that you should grow up? Be what you are. I mean, I know her well enough. Be what you are. Echo what Professor Trilochan Shastri says. Doing what you like, doing what you enjoy doing. You don't have to be appropriate all the time. You don't have to do what others expect you to do. And you have fun doing what you want to do. I don't think these transitions in life are like one sudden switch. There are role transitions that happen in a switch, but most transitions happen as a long period of time. So you are a carefree student today. You will be a carefree employee on probation for some time. And you will not realize when your probation ends and when you start getting more and more responsibilities. It will not happen like one shot. Today you have to behave. Till this point in time you can do what you want. From tomorrow morning you have to behave. Nothing like that will happen. It's a transition. It's a long transition. There's a long life ahead of your time. Long life ahead. I don't think any of us will claim, at least I don't claim to have grown up. Not yet.
So just like how you mentioned, as we enter into the corporate world, we'll be lost in a lot of responsibilities. There's a very small chance that we actually be grateful for whatever we received here at IIMB. So as alumni, what do you think should be our role going forward towards the institute, and how do you think we can contribute going forward?
Yeah, so I think the best way you can pay back the institute is to do what you're supposed to do, which is to do well in your career, do a good job. You heard plenty of advice from all our colleagues on how you can contribute. I think the number one payback to the institute is to do that. If you do something beyond that, most welcome. But I think the first and most important thing you can do is do your karma. Professor Shastri gave you some good advice on finding your swadharma. Do all that. If you do that, that's your payback to the institute.
Thank you. We had
I think, sorry, just as an alum, I think just one more way that we can is that we talk about the institute with the kind of gratitude with which we are leaving this place, and continue to champion it as ambassadors. I think that's a very, very important one. As I look at myself as an alumni of IIMB today, each one of us are ambassadors for IIMB brand. The more we are able to talk about it and present it, I think the more the conviction will be around people like us. Reputation comes from each one of us. Yeah, thanks. Great question. Thank you. Yeah.
So, in a lot of your speeches, there was mentioning about being true to yourself, even though there is a lot of apprehension against you. But I believe as we go through our lives, there will be a lot of situations where we are being held up for reasons where we are not supposed to be, and we are being blamed for things where we are not supposed to be. So, even in those kind of situations, how do you manage to cope up with yourself and be true to yourself?
No, see, the world is not such a bad place. No, let me be very honest about it. Yes, there will be challenging situations. Personally, I have faced through the NGOs that I've started, income tax raids and intelligence bureau and all sorts of things. But if you are true to yourself, I have found that the world is not such a bad place. Things sort out. If you start compromising, You may win some local tactical battle and say, "Ha, chalo, musibat tali or this problem is solved." But will you be following a Swadharma? Will you be happy, or will you eat yourself inside out that I had to make all these compromises? That you have to answer for yourself. So when you are true to yourself, it doesn't mean that you are aggressive and selfish and arrogant and grabbing for everything. That is not your true self. Your true self is all the things that I tried to mention in my this thing. You are part of society. You of course want to succeed, but you also trying to do good to people around you, to the organization. If you think that is your true self, people recognize it and nobody will harass you. I'm telling you, you will be all right. You don't have to worry about it. That's why Shakespeare says, "Be true to thine own self, and it must follow as the night the day." He's saying like, it's causal relationship, that thou canst then not be false to any man. Means you are not going to do wrong to anybody. And if you don't do wrong to anybody, then nothing will happen. Yes, there is competition. People will try to elbow you out of the way. All those things will happen. You will figure out how to deal with those things. But if you are genuine, people will recognize that. The world is not such a bad place. Believe me, if you go with the assumption that the world is a cutthroat, bad place and everybody is out to elbow me out of the way and I have to elbow myself ahead of others, you are causing psychological pressure on you yourself. World is not such a bad place. Let me repeat it again and again. Just do good things and good things will happen to you.
Thank you. In the interest of time, we have to close this Q&A session, but definitely very interesting set of questions and even more interesting answers. It's an honor for the Students' Academic Committee to honor the professors as the evening nears its blissful conclusion. Starting first, I would like to request Chairperson Professor Srinivasan to honor Professor Srinivasan. Thank you, Professor Srinivasan. Next, we would like to request Dean Programs Professor Rahul Dé to honor Professor Srinivasan. Thank you, Professor Dé. Lastly, we would like to request the Director of the Institute, R.T. Krishnan, to honor Professor Shastri.
Congratulations, graduates. May your journey be marked by wisdom, resilience, and unwavering pursuit of Pragya. A seamless learning experience has been paramount to your MBA journey. A group of students has been active in this endeavor and working tirelessly for you to have a smooth academic experience. Throughout the 2 years experience, you may have reached out to them countless number of times for many queries. But more importantly, entrusted them with raising your academic concerns with the administrations. You guessed it right. Although an introduction is not required, with sheer delight, allow us to welcome Students' Academic Committee 2023. Please welcome Vagish, Abhigyan, Abhishek, Janani, Mansa, and Saurav.
Can we have a...
Let's have a big round of applause for Academic Committee 2023. Now that we have come to the end of this beautiful evening, I invite Abhishek to deliver the final vote of thanks on the behalf of Acad Committee.
Good evening, everyone. And with a profound sense of gratitude, I stand before you today to extend our heartfelt thanks to everyone who made this beautiful evening possible. Reflecting on our journey, it seems like just yesterday when we sat here in the orientation ceremony, looking at all the clueless new faces who would soon become our go-to companions over the next 2 years. Throughout our time here at IIM Bangalore, we underwent numerous challenges in terms of submissions, presentations, midterms, end-terms, CPs, DCPs, and placements. Despite being really painful, they helped create memories that will stay etched in our memory, in our hearts forever. Tonight, we had the privilege of experiencing the wisdom of our esteemed professors through Pragya, the event that marks the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. I want to start by thanking Dean Administration, Professor Jaydev, and Chief Administrative Officer, Colonel S.D. Ravendan, in the smooth conduct of this event. We sincerely thank PGP Manager Shilpa Ma'am, Administrative Officer, Student Welfare and Hostel, Komla Ma'am, the entire PGP office, the AV section, and the countless other stakeholders who helped make this event a resounding success. A special thank you to our PGP PGP-BA Chairperson, Professor Srinivasan, whose mentorship and guidance were essential for bringing this event to fruition. On behalf of the batch of 2024, we also thank our respected director, Professor R.T. Krishnan, and Dean Programs, Professor Rahul Dé, for gracing this event. An extremely heartfelt thank you to our three guest speakers, Professor Triloshan Shastri, Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan, and Professor Srinivasan for sharing their pearls of wisdom. Lastly, we extend our gratitude to all the faculty members and the fellow batchmates who are present here and helped make this event a memorable one. On this parting note, for all that IIMB has given us, there's only one line I can say. IIMB for you 1,000 times over. Thank you, everyone. All the very best. Let us all make IIMB proud.
Before we finally close this beautiful evening, let us all stand for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल वंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you. We hope you had an amazing time.